Well, welcome everybody to our very first monthly event of our mentor pairs for 2021-2022. Welcome. What a great way to kick off the program for this year with some information about what to know about graduate school. So excited that you all have taken the opportunity to join us. My name is Kelly Schwinn. I am a member of the CSE Alumni Board, which runs our mentorship program. And as a part of the Student Engagement Committee, we get involved in helping to run this program, and we really hope you guys enjoy it this year as well. My personal experience with the mentorship program was I was a mentee a couple of times when I was an undergraduate, and then I've also been a mentor several times as a professional out in industry as well. So thank you so much for joining us today. We hope you have a really successful year in your mentor pair, and we really hope you enjoy today's program. I'm going to pass it off to Andrea for introduction of our presenters today.
Thanks so much, Kelly. Welcome, everyone. My name is Andrea Hansen. I am the Assistant Director of Events and Alumni Relations for the college and help run this mentorship program. So before we get started, I just want to cover a few housekeeping notes really quickly. So this is a Zoom meeting, so you all have access to your camera. If you'd like to turn your camera on, you are welcome to. You also have your microphone access. We are going to ask that you stay muted during the panel and presentation. And if you have questions, put them in the chat box for us. If you called in, if you could also go into the chat and or unmute quickly and give us your name so we know who you are and we can make sure you end up in the right breakout room. We have the live auto transcript feature on if you don't want to see it, or if you're not seeing it and you'd like to, at the bottom of your screen, there is a live transcript button, and you click that and you can control that. We are going to record today's meeting. However, breakout rooms will not be recorded. The rest of the presentation and panel will be recorded, and we will share that with everybody in the mentor program following today's event. All right. So I want to quickly run through a quick agenda for today's event. We're going to start off with a presentation from the CSE Graduate Education Coordinator, and then a mentor panel discussion. Then we're going to go into breakout rooms for small group discussions. And then we will come back together, share quickly as a group, and follow up with some upcoming events. Okay, so I'd like to introduce our panelists and presenters for today. So Kimberly Colgan is a doctoral candidate in bioproducts and biosystems engineering and management with a minor in applied economics. She graduated with a BS in industrial and systems engineering from the U in 2017, and her research focuses on food systems, climate change, and policy change. Kimberly has mentored for 2 years. Our second panelist is Alyssa Ann Mullings. Alyssa Ann graduated with a BS in mathematics from the U of M in 2016 and has a master's in data science from the University of St. Thomas from 2020. She has about 5 years experience transforming data into actionable insights across several industries, including IT, retail, and financial services. And this is Alyssa Ann's second year mentoring. Our third panelist is Brandon Fan. Brandon graduated with a BS in biomedical engineering from the U in 2017 and is currently in the Masters of Medical Device Design Innovation Program. He worked for Medtronic for 5 years and recently moved to a new position at a physician education company, ViewMedi. Brandon has mentored for 3 years with the program. And finally, our last panelist is Scott Reed. Scott is Vice President and Environmental Project Manager at HDR Engineering. He graduated with a BS in Geology from the U in 1991 and an MBA from the University of St. Thomas in 2002. Scott applies learnings from both his technical and managerial degrees at HDR regularly and is appreciative of the value provided by these different types of degrees. And this is also Scott's second year mentoring. And then finally, we have a special guest, CSE Graduate Education Coordinator at the college, Jill Johnson. She has a BA in International Relations from the university And Jill has worked in graduate education for most of her time in the university, starting in the Department of Civil, Environmental, and Geoengineering before moving into the Dean's office. So thank you all for being here today. And I'm going to go ahead and turn it over to Jill to get us started.
Hey, thank you, Andrea, and thank you everyone for being here today. So I'm here to talk a little bit about graduate school. What are the benefits of getting that graduate degree? How do you prepare for graduate school? And what is the application process like? So first of all, what are the benefits of a graduate degree? So in general, it'll lead to more opportunities for you, qualify you for more jobs. So one thing we like to talk about in CSE that I think we're kind of proud of is that 91% of our undergraduates have a job in their field or are in graduate school 6 months after graduation. So you might wonder, well, do I need a graduate degree? And maybe the answer kind of will depend on what your ultimate goal is and what you want to get out of it. And I'll say a little bit more about that in a minute or two. But basically, with a graduate degree, you will qualify for more jobs across different fields, different levels, that kind of thing. It'll just lead to a little bit more opportunity for you. If you wanted to advance in a technical area, it is really important to have that graduate degree. That's going to lead to, again, more opportunities for advancement in those technical areas. Perhaps you're interested in teaching. If you wanted to teach at a college, community college, or a university, that's another area where you will need to have an advanced degree to do that. And another thing to keep in mind, it will open opportunities for you. And if you're not sure what you want to do, maybe you want to work for a while. A lot of industries, a lot of companies do cover a master's degree for their employees. So that might be something you want to keep in mind if you do want to work for a few years and kind of see where it takes you. Another benefit of having a graduate degree is research. And that here is kind of, I feel like, the meat of it, is if you want to do research in your career, that advanced degree is kind of required for anyone doing research, development, or design. So if you want to do any kind of specialization, any kind of in-depth research, if you want to be the one that gets those new ideas started to come up with those innovations, having a graduate degree is very important. So grad school is really about learning about future problems. So if you want to be that person who comes up with solutions to those problems we don't even know about yet, then you want to have that advanced degree. And finally, salary is another important thing that people think about. So generally, again, salaries do rise with that additional training, but I do want to say a note about that here. So this will depend a lot on what field you're in. So if that is kind of your main reason for getting a graduate degree, I would encourage you to kind of think about that. Look at the field that you're in. A graduate degree may only get you a few more percentage points of salary in some fields, but in other fields, it could be maybe as high as 20 or 30% more salary. So really, it really depends. And I would really encourage you to kind of do your research, market research in your field to see if it would be worth it for you. So overall, what I would say is to have a good goal in mind. What is your ultimate goal for going to graduate school? If you want to, again, qualify for more jobs, have those more opportunities, if you want to do research, or if that's just a lifelong goal of yours, you want to have that graduate degree, those are all good opportunities, good reasons for going. But again, if it's just salary that you're looking at, that I would say a little bit more research and see where you are before you make your decision. Next slide, please. Okay, so now what do programs look for and how can you prepare for graduate school? So I guess the most important thing would be to get some experience. That would be in research. If you could participate in some kind of summer research project, work in a lab, something like that. Or if you can get an internship working in industry over the summer or sometime, that will just show graduate programs that you've got that research. And then if you're going into a graduate program, you can kind of hit the ground running when you get there, if you've got that extra experience. Publications I added just because they're nice, people like to see them. It's not required, but it is a nice thing to have if you're able to do that. Another thing that programs will look for is, are you the right fit for their program, and are they the right fit for you? Do your interests align with the program's strengths? Do they have faculty that can advise you? Are they able to get you through the program and help you with your ultimate goal? And that's something they'll think about. They want to be able to make sure that they can help you along and to meet your goals. That's important to them. Another thing that they'll look for kind of is your potential for graduate study. And that's something they'll get from your letters of recommendation, talking to you or interviews, that sort of thing. They're kind of looking for, do you have clear goals in mind? Do you have a specific area you'd like to study or a specific career goal in mind that they'll look for? Maybe is there a level of maturity they're looking for? Or possibly if you're going into research, do they see that curiosity and creativity that can be very important for research? Basically, they're kind of looking for that little spark to tell them, okay, this student would do well in our program, they're a good fit, we can help them meet their goals, and we see something in this student that we like. Finally, of course, they're going to look at your academic record, your letters of recommendation, the rigor of the undergraduate institution, your GPA, your whole package, basically. That's just one aspect of it, but that is one important thing that they will look at as well. Next slide. Okay, so then a little bit about, well, what's the application process like? What materials will I need to come up with? So each graduate program does their own admissions. So each of them have a little bit different requirements, different deadlines, that sort of thing. So if you get to the point where you think, okay, yeah, I want to apply, I would encourage you to visit the website of whatever program and just see what their requirements are. But basically, for deadlines, you would want, if you're applying to a PhD program, those are going to be much earlier, usually early to mid-December for the next fall. So if you want to enter grad school fall of 23, you'd be applying in December of 22. And for master's only programs, again, it's a little bit later, maybe February or March, but again, you'll need to look at the website of the program to find out exactly. Materials also, mainly it's going to be the same materials for each program, but some might require slightly different things. So to look at their website and look is important. Two things that every program is going to require would be the online application through the graduate school and your transcripts, of course. DRE, some programs do not require that any longer, but if you're applying to a program that does, I would encourage you to get that out of the way at least a few months before you're planning to apply. It just makes things easier. You take the test, you've got your scores, you have time to get them to the institution. And so when you submit your materials, you've got the whole package that the faculty can look at. Nothing is late, it's all there on time. The DRE is the graduate record examination. It's just a standardized test that some programs still require for their applicants. Letters of recommendation, most programs will still require 3. And they should be from faculty or supervisors, someone who can kind of comment on your background or your potential. Some programs, usually the master's ones, may require only 1 or 2, but again, that kind of depends on which program. And most will require a statement of purpose or goals, kind of outlining, do you have a specific research interest or a specific faculty person you want to work with? What is your career goals, that type of thing. And some do require a diversity statement, which will just ask you to kind of go into your background, your experiences, ask you to explain any diverse identities you might have, just to see what different things you might bring to the program. And then finally, I wanted to say just a little bit about funding. For people who are going into research and want to go into a PhD program, those people will most oftentimes be fully funded by the program. When it comes to master's degrees, that's a little bit different. Some can offer some small amount of funding to their master's students, but some programs don't offer any funding to master's students. So that is just something else to keep in mind when you're thinking about graduate school, because it can be a big cost, obviously. Next slide. Finally, I just wanted to show you where you can look up some more information, get some resources if you need to look up more. So since most of you are in CSE, or all of you probably, you probably have a good idea of what programs we offer, but there may be some that you're not aware of. So if you go to this link, it will list all the different programs that CSE offers, including our integrated degrees, which are 5-year BS masters, BSMS degrees. Another resource would be our directors of graduate studies. So if you wanted to talk to somebody about, what can I study this in your department? What research is here? What are the labs like? What's the field like to work in? That sort of thing. They would be a great resource. And we have a list here of all of our directors of graduate studies. if you want to talk to someone more along the lines of, you know, who can help me with my application if I have questions about that sort of thing. If you look up the graduate program and look for all of them have a page for their admissions section, and all of them list a contact, usually the DGS assistant or the graduate program coordinator, they're called, and they can also help you with some of that more admissions and application type questions. CSE Career Center is another good resource if you are interested in seeing, well, what companies hire in my particular field, what are some of the starting salaries. They do have some tips on applying to graduate school, that sort of thing. So that's a good resource as well. Finally, if you're to the point where you're like, yeah, I'm going to apply, I'm going to do it, everything goes through the grad school admissions office first. So they will lay out how to apply, how to upload transcripts, all of that. And finally, anyone can contact me if they have any questions. I'm always happy to answer questions from everybody. So thank you very much. And if anyone has questions, please feel free to pose them now.
Yes, if anyone has any questions for Jill right away, we can take those quickly before we move on to our panel discussion. You can throw them in the chat, or you're welcome to just unmute yourself and ask as well. Okay, I'm going to go ahead and move on then, because we do have a packed agenda today. So thank you, Jill, so much for sharing all of that. We will share a follow-up. Oh, sorry, David just put in a question. Yes, don't most graduate programs discourage applicants who are undergrads at the same institution?
Some do, not all of them though. Not all of them. It kind of depends on the program. Some are very reluctant to take their own students and feel like they really would benefit from going to a different institution to learn from different faculty. But some programs, even within our college, they're fine with taking their own students. So it really just depends.
And would you recommend, if students are interested, current undergrads who are interested in maybe attending the U, reach out to a graduate school director of graduate studies, and ask what
Yep, that's what I would have them do.
Okay, great, thank you. And thanks for asking that, David. All right, so we will share an email following the event today with the recording, and it will also include all of the links that Jill shared, so that if you didn't write them down, we'll save them for you. I'm now going to invite our moderator, CSE Alumni Board Member John Seichmeyer, to join us and get our panel discussion started. John graduated with a degree in civil engineering in 1989 and a master's in geoengineering from the U in 92. And he's going to get us started with our panel. So take it away, John.
All right, well, great. Thanks for being here. I think we got a really nice panel put together. I'll ask a question and then we'll pass it off to the mentors to answer this question. So let's get her going. The first question, and I'll start off with Kimberly will go first, and then we'll go on from there. So the first question is, how did you decide to go to graduate school? For instance, and then when did you decide? What were some of the factors you looked at? And then what tipped the scales in favor of you attending grad school? So Kimberly, if you want to lead us off, that'd be great.
Yeah, well, mine was fairly last minute. The idea of writing a dissertation in undergrad and growing up kind of terrified me. And so after 4 years of engineering, I was ready to be done. But I took some classes on food systems and climate change, and I realized that I didn't have enough knowledge on food systems to know if the work that I'd be doing right out of college would actually make the difference that I wanted it to. So when my undergraduate advisor for my minor in environmental science policy and management asked me to apply to his lab for grad school, I did.
All right, well, excellent, thank you. Alyssa Ann, if you want to, same question about why did you how did you decide to go to graduate school?
Yeah, I think the grad school choice for me was kind of a thought that I had in the back of my head for a long time. So it wasn't choice of me for do I want to go? It was just like at what point in time. And I took about a year and a half off on before I went back to school. And that was good for me because I was able to work. It was like the first time that I was able to sort of apply all of the things that I had learned in school to like a real world case. And so, yeah, I took about a year and a half off. I did work at the same time that I was in school as well. That was sort of one of my goals when I went through to choose a school. It was a school where I could go to school, but I could keep my job too. So yeah, that's sort of how I chose to go, and then at what point in time as well.
Excellent. Thanks for sharing that. Brandon.
Sure. So I did a couple of years of undergraduate research, and most of my career at Medtronic was in a research lab, and figured that more traditional master's or PhD wasn't for me. The program I'm in currently is more focused on the non-engineering aspects of creating a startup in the medical device space, which is something that I was interested in. And that's kind of what tipped me towards that program.
All right, thank you. Excellent. And Scott, if you wanted to offer a few thoughts.
Sure. Well, very much like Alyssa Ann, I think I always knew that I wanted to do something, but I wasn't quite sure what it was or when it would be. I actually had looked at a number of opportunities from when I graduated in 92 till eventually starting in 1998. So I worked for about 6 years in the environmental consulting industry before I decided which direction I wanted to go. And I knew I didn't want to dive deeper into the technical. I'm very glad there are people that do. But for me, I knew it was going to be something more in the managerial space. I looked at both law and looked at the MBA programs, and ended up settling on an MBA program.
All right, thank you. I don't know if, Jill, did you want to offer any thoughts on this question, or?
I guess I would say that it's really kind of an individual thing. Everybody kind of has their reasons that they want to go, and you know, just to kind of have to know what you want out of it before you start, I guess.
All right, very good, thank you. Well, let's the second question then, and this one we'll start with Alyssa Ann this time. So the second question is, what other options or types of programs did you consider? So Alyssa Ann.
Yeah, when I sat down to think about grad school, there were a lot of paths in the tech space that I could have gone down. I could have gone down sort of the grad school path. There's also like the boot camp path as well. If you just want to learn how to code and to do things like that, you can find a class or two within that space. So sort of those were sort of the two paths that I had to choose from. I chose the grad school path because through the job I was in at the time, it was paid. And so there were, of course, a ton of pros there just with the cost, just the fact that I did not have to pay. And I think grad school just kind of appealed to me because, again, my goals when I went into school were, hey, what can I learn in school that I can then sort of bring into my job? And so I knew when I went down sort of like the grad school path, I knew that that would allow me to get from point A to point B. But I would say if there's more like a specific thing that you want to learn, like I said, if you wanted to learn to code, if you wanted to learn more of those like hard tech skills, then perhaps don't just think about like grad school. Think about, hey, is there a course that I can take?
All right, thank you. Brandon, if you'd like to go next.
Sure. Yeah, when I was in undergrad, I chose BME because it had a lot of options. In terms of grad school, I was thinking about getting a PhD or even medical school, but quite quickly, those options were ruled out. Just because I didn't want to sit through that much schooling. And now I've gone back to school, and that decision was kind of fueled financially because I can do this program while working, and part of it, like Alyssa Ann, is paid for by my company. And then it just kind of fit my schedule and my lifestyle a bit better compared to some of the other options.
All right, thank you. Scott.
Yeah, I already kind of hinted, I guess, a little bit. I certainly did look at law school. I looked at a couple of different MBA programs, both the University of Minnesota and the University of St. Thomas. I also was very interested in the Master's in Urban and Regional Planning degree from the Humphrey Institute at the University of Minnesota. But at that time, they didn't have an evening program. And like I said, I had started working, I was married, we were getting ready to have a family, had just bought a house. So I needed to keep working and it needed to be a flexible evening program. And that really kind of drove my decision.
All right, thank you. Maybe Kimberly, and then we'll have Jill comment on this one too, but Kimberly first.
Yeah, similar to Scott, I was like, okay, I have bills to pay. So I really considered working. I had an internship in environmental permitting and compliance at 3M that I really loved. I also considered a few other PhD programs. Joe mentioned this earlier, but usually they're funded. I was looking at an agroecology PhD at Wisconsin and an agricultural engineering PhD in Kansas. But really, I knew I wanted to work with Professor Hill and really work for like large scale food systems transformation.
All right, excellent. Thanks for sharing that. And then Jill, if you want to wrap this one up for us.
I guess what I would say is that there are different types of graduate degrees. So again, to keep in mind what your goal is for that, there are some coursework only degrees. And if you're just looking to, expand your knowledge a little bit, your company's paying for it, you want to get that credential, that would be a good way to go. But there's other types as well. Again, if you're into research, you might go for a more research oriented degree. I know students have a lot of options, but I guess I'm focused, being a grad ed coordinator, I'm focused on grad school.
Excellent. That's why you're there. Thanks for being there. So the third question then is, for this one, we'll start off with Brandon. So the third question is, what benefits did you see from getting a graduate degree? So Brandon?
Yeah, and I alluded to it in the first question, but the reason why I chose the MDI program at the U was because I was considering creating a startup in my field and just wanted to learn a bit more about the non-technical aspects. So I think this program did a really good job of teaching me how to do like an FDA submission, how clinical studies are run, kind of the quality aspects that I didn't really get hands-on time with. And I think the biggest benefit of this program, and Jill's kind of alluding to it, is, it kind of fit my goals, and it was a lot cheaper to do this program than it would be to like hire a consultant to do that for me down the line. And it just made sense overall.
Very good. Thank you. Scott, if you want to take this one.
Yeah, well, an MBA was always of interest to me because it really was kind of learning the language of business. And as I was exposed to the consulting engineering and consulting environmental industry, I knew that I wanted to take on greater challenges. And there are many ways to tackle those challenges. My company currently has a number of PhDs, especially in our water and wastewater treatment area. But if you're going to run the kind of the profit and loss center of a portion or all of a company, it really does help to be able to speak that language: accounting, marketing, finance, those types of things. So those just really intrigued me, and it was been a really good fit.
Thank you. So let's see, Kimberly, you're up next.
So for me, my main motivation was to really learn enough about climate change and food systems to know where I should work to have the biggest impact. I went in to grad school thinking it would be engineering and technical solutions, but quickly realized that the biggest barrier to real change is in policy. So I'm hoping to work in policy and policy research at the federal level after I graduate. And I wouldn't have known that that was even an option out of school and undergrad.
Oh, that sounds like fun. So Alyssa Ann, go ahead, please.
Yeah. For me, I actually sat down and browsed jobs, not that I wanted at the time, but jobs I might want 5 or 10 years down. And a lot of the jobs I saw did say that they preferred some type of grad school. So that sort of went into the plans that I had when I went into school. Well, this is where I want to be. These are the steps that I should take now to get from point A to point B.
Thank you. And Jill, you get a bet clean up again here. So you get the benefits of grad school. This should be right right down your path there. Thank you.
Well, again, I mean, more opportunities, perhaps higher salary. Again, getting your goals met. You want to be that person who creates that new knowledge, or like Kimberly said, you want to make that impact. And maybe you need a grad degree to get into those higher levels to do that.
Thank you. So the fourth question, how did you manage the anxiety or stress when deciding to go to graduate school and then during the program? So this one we'll start off with Scott. Anxiety and stress. Any issues there, or how did it go?
Well, making the decision, no, I was really excited because I actually did a fair amount of research. But once you start a evening MBA program and you started in 1998 with 0 kids and finish up 5 years later and you have 2 kids, there's a lot of anxiety and stress that goes along the way. And my family was tremendously supportive. I think that's the main thing. If you're going to be in a situation like I was, where you've already started a portion of your career, your professional life, and people are relying on you for at least partially for income or other support, there's a lot of trade-offs that have to be considered and a lot of support that needs to be provided in both directions, really.
Great, thank you. Kimberly.
Yeah, like Scott, I wasn't anxious or stressed about going to grad school, but I was just excited. But to manage stress during my program, I work with other students in my lab and my cohort and in the science, technology, and environmental policy program at Humphrey. In my program, we're lucky enough that we have really great health insurance. So I'm able to access mental health services and go to therapy. I highly recommend this to everyone, regardless if you study a really heavy field like climate change. It's just a great perk of being a graduate student, and it really helps you like work on yourself. So that's what I do to manage stress and anxiety.
Excellent. Thanks for sharing those thoughts. Alyssa Ann.
Yeah, so the stress for me is just like, one, how could I find time between work and school? I did work like a full-time job when I went back to school as well. And so there were just days where I went where I felt like I was not at home, where I felt like I didn't eat. And so for me, it was more stress around like, how do I find time for this? But what I did for that was I was just extremely clear with my team at my job. Like I was just extremely clear, like, guys, I am in school now. I might need to take a break to go and just grab something to eat as well. And so I think for me, the stress that I had was just, how do I find time? But what helped me with that was just to be extremely clear with like where I was at my job so that they could give me grace and that they could give me time as well.
Very good. Brandon.
So I think I'm actually pretty bad at school. I was never the best student, and I'm not really good at managing my time either. And so I got a little bit of imposter syndrome when I was thinking about, med school or a PhD program. And so what kind of did it for me was I chose a program that was a bit more flexible with my time and all in all, a lot easier than some of those traditional grad programs. And I think that has worked out really well.
Thank you. And Jill, I was thinking, maybe you could offer again some of these resources that are available through the grad school or at the university. Maybe you could speak a little bit more about that.
Yeah, that would be something that I would suggest, is to take advantage of some of those resources that are available. There are mental health resources. There are writing workshops. There are things that the graduate school puts on, workshops for helping you through your dissertation or all kinds of things like that. The college has lots of different groups as well. I would suggest people to, if you can, to get involved. It always helps to be able to talk to other people, other students to help you through. And I think that would make a big difference for a lot of people.
All right, thank you. We're already on our last question. This is just flying by here. So the fifth question is, what is your top piece of advice for undergraduates that are considering graduate school? And we'll go back to that. We'll start off with Kimberly for this one.
Okay, so I've got two. One, take more statistics classes. You'll need it. They're useful, even if they're not fun. And the main thing is, if you're thinking about a PhD, make sure that you choose a program that allows you to do research you love and with an advisor you get along with well. It'll be a lot of your time, so you should like it. In master's programs too, you have more of like a set curriculum, and there are other people who play a larger role in your successes. But in doctoral programs, your success is almost exclusively in your advisor's hands. So you want to make sure that you choose someone who has a compatible work style with you and who has time and the resources to help you succeed.
Excellent, thank you. Alyssa Ann, advice.
Yeah, I think I have two as well. My one would just be to take time off before you go back to school. You don't want to take a ton of time off because then you might not want to go back to school, but take time off, like give yourself some time, just like free time from school, I guess. So one would be to take time off before you choose to go back to school. And then two for me would just be to make sure you're clear on sort of the why around why you want to go back to school, right? Like we talked about some things on this call. We talked about costs, like it will cost you to go back to school. That could be on top of some loans that you might have, like from the past as well. So there's the cost of that. There's the time as well. And so just before you decide to go back, don't go back because you think you'll find a great new job, because you think you'll get paid a ton. Go back because there's a certain want that you have for why you want to go back, and that goal will be what will help you through as well.
Thank you. Brandon.
Yeah, I'm gonna second what Kimberly had to say and stress that you should be talking to the faculty and students in that program currently. Just like Kimberly said, you'll be spending a lot of time with those people, and you just want to make sure that it's the right fit socially.
Thanks. Scott?
I'm going to echo a lot of what's already been said, but make sure you're doing something you love. And if you're not sure, take the time to figure that out first before making such a huge investment of time and money. If you know that you happen to love an area that tends to be more technical and drives you more towards a research focus, perhaps, that's great. And you might need to jump into that right away. But if you're thinking that or you're in an area where you might be able to work for a while in that industry and learn a little bit more about what it's really like outside of academia, take that opportunity as well and see if it really is right for you. And that also may give you a great chance to capitalize on tuition reimbursement programs at a workplace. So just some additional tips.
Thank you. So I guess Jill will give you a shot at wrapping it up here. So the advice as we...
Well, I guess I would second, triple, and quadruple what everyone has said, and just to be kind of clear, what are your motivations for graduate school? What do you want to get out of it? Take the time to do your research and really know what you want.
All right. Well, thank you all very much. And I think I've certainly learned a lot listening to the conversation. So I think from here we're headed off into the breakout rooms. Maybe Andrea, do you have anything to say at the moment?
Yes, we are going to go into breakout rooms. But before we do that, I have a quick question for Brandon, because there was something that I was hoping he might mention, and it was about when to take the GRE. Do you want to share that, Brandon? Your suggestion about
Sure.
if you're thinking about a program that requires a GRE?
Yeah, I took the GRE after I graduated from undergrad. And I felt like that was the wrong decision for me because I felt like I lost a lot of just basic knowledge and skills. So I'd recommend that if you're thinking about grad school and your program might require it, that you take it in undergrad, because I think your test score will last 5 years from what I recall. And nowadays it's you can do the GRE at home as opposed to having to go in a facility. So it makes it really easy to do so.
That just really resonated with me. The idea that maybe while you're still in school, while you're still fresh off of taking tests and studying, to think about that, and maybe, because it can be very hard to think about that stuff after you've been working for a year or two. All right, so we are going to go into small groups now. So as I said earlier, I think I said this, all of the panelists will be in breakout rooms as well. So if you have more questions for any of them, you can absolutely ask them then. In the small groups, we're going to just introduce yourselves. Mentors, we'd like you to share why you did or did not decide to pursue a graduate degree. And then students, you can ask any questions you have about graduate school, the process, anything from the panelists as well. We will have a host in each room. We have 3 lovely hosts today, all CSE alumni board members who are helping us out, who will help just guide the conversation. You'll get a 5-minute warning and a 1-minute warning before we bring everyone back together. And I think we've got about 15 minutes for this process. Great, welcome back, everybody. That always goes so much faster than I expect it's going to, but I hope you all had some good conversation. We've got about 5 minutes, and so I just really briefly want to ask our hosts from each room if there's anything that came up in your room that you think everyone else would like to know about or hear about or would be interesting to everyone else. If you want to share anything.
I'll say real quick, we had a small group with great conversation. A couple of questions that we went around were funding for master's degree. How prevalent is it? Is it easy to get funding? And then secondly, just trying to get perspective on the value of a master's, or how do you get connected with maybe some professionals that can provide additional insight into areas that align with what you want to do and help solidify if you want to go pursue a master's or not.
Great.
Yep.
That's, yeah.
Yeah, I would say we talked a little bit about getting started, either whether it was with your MBA or with your master's degree. We talked a little bit about how do you get some experiences and start to learn, what you may or may not like and what direction you might want your career to go, and sort of what tools and resources might be out there. So whether it's, talking to somebody in industry or having a different experience, we talked a little bit about that. And we did focus a lot because we had a couple of MBAs in the room and some interest there. We focused a lot on MBAs, but also touched on master's degrees, masters and PhDs as well.
Great.
Yeah.
Well, one thing we ended up talking a little bit about internships, and I mentioned, and Andrea and Joelle know this, but my wife actually is a director of an internship program. So we'll send out to everybody that participated this evening and this again, it's an internship program that links STEM students with small businesses in Minnesota, and so it's a low pressure thing. But anyway, it's out there. It's called SciTech, and they seem to have just a lot of happy students and employers that are getting connected. So we can send out this link to the group here. So
great. Thank you, John, so much. And it looks like Kimberly put her contact information in the chat, and if our other panelists are willing to share theirs, anybody you want to reach out to learn more. And then I will also plug really quickly the Mentor Program LinkedIn group, which is open to past and current mentors and students, and is a great place if you're looking for people to get in touch with, looking for people to do informational interviews with, people who are working in industry who can talk to you about whether or not a master's degree is going to be beneficial to that industry. That is a great place to look. So we'll share that as well in the follow-up email. All right, so very quickly before we send everybody on their way, I have 2 quick things I want to share with you all. First of all, thank you to all of our panelists and our hosts. We really appreciate that. I hope you all found that really entertaining and interesting. This new opportunity for students on the Maroon and Gold Network, which is the university's own networking platform connecting students and alumni. They're introducing projects, and projects are micro internships. They provide short-term, real-world professional experiences supported by alumni. With a project, students can gain new skills, explore different industries, and make valuable career connections. Projects are between 5 and 40 hours of work. So like I said, these micro internships, and you can start applying for projects on November 20th. So if you're not already a member of the Maroon and Gold Network, I strongly suggest you sign up. It is a great way to connect with alumni. Again, you can reach out to people for informational interviews on the platform. You can search for alums in different industries or companies or with different degrees, and you can also look into these projects. All right, and then I wanted to let you all know to save the date for our mid-year event, which will be a mentor career panel on Thursday, February 10th. And this will be a panel of mentors from varying fields and industries, sharing their career journeys and showing how they've used their STEM degrees in industry. And there will be time for small group discussions. More information and how to register will arrive in your inboxes this winter, likely in December. All right, and then finally, I just want to remind you all that you can find recordings of past events on our csc.umn.edu/mentor materials webpage. And that includes the How Can the CSE Career Center Support Your Student webinar that we did last year with CSE Career Center, which is a great place to find out all the ways the CSE Career Center helps our students. The monthly pairs events from last year, including elevator pitches, informational interviews, networking, and using LinkedIn. We will add anything, we'll add this one to that as well. There are the new mentor panel discussions. And in the summer of 2020, we did a webinar called Graduating into a Recession that I think students will still find really interesting. So definitely check that out. As always, Joelle and I are here to help with anything. So if you ever have issues or have questions, want to connect with other mentors or looking for something specific, please reach out and let us know. And that is it. Like I said, we recorded this. We'll send you an email with all of this information in it probably next week. So thank you all and have a great night.